Hello, and welcome to Makers.dev episode number 38. Chris, what's up?
Not too much, except for I start my master's program this week. So
Woo!
that's my big week.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I don't have access to the classes yet, but I can log into the platform and see them, and so I'm getting ready to do that. That's exciting. That also means this is the last week of my job, my summer visiting software developer job. So I'm wrapping that up. I'm trying to get the code in a good place and document it well and all that stuff. So yeah, that's my week. It's exciting.
Does it feel like getting back to school week? Are you going to Walmart and getting binders and pencils?
No, I mean, we just sent our kids back to school, so I feel that a little for the kids. But no, this feels more like starting a new online class. It doesn't really feel like starting a whole new master's program because I'm not going anywhere, right? It's just like it feels like starting a new class that happens to have a forum online and people that are going to grade my work. So but yeah, it doesn't really feel like school actually, which is interesting.
That's less exciting. Something I always used to get excited about when starting a new chapter of school was the people that I would be exposed to. Like, who's in these classes? And I'm going to be sitting next to them. And, I have this friend who's in this class, who was in this other class before. And yeah, that's not really something you get from online classes. I've in the Ali Abdal class that I took earlier this year, I feel like if there was more of a curriculum around that, if there was like, okay, this is one class in this genre, but okay, now a bunch of these people are also going to learn, I don't know, editing in Final Cut Pro or online marketing, or and here's a bunch of the same people. I'd feel sort of the same way, but online classes don't quite have that culture that in-person classes do, and I'm not quite sure what it would take to replicate that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about stuff with Open Door? Did you accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish? Were you grossly optimistic or pessimistic in what you were setting out to do?
Hidden Door, and it was. Yeah, a little of both, I suppose. We set out to accomplish a certain thing, and then through the summer, certain things were more complicated or less complicated than we thought. So we're ending in a little different place than we thought, but I think it's a really good place. Some things happened to work really, really well, and so I did better at some things than I thought I was going to do, and then other things. So one of the things that happened is they're in the middle of a play test right now, which is they're basically beta testing with some players, and that took a lot of their effort to get that going. And so some of the things we were going to do, I think, were sort of put off because they were focused on this play test. But that's okay. That allowed me to focus on some other things, which I think are going to turn out really well for them. So I learned a lot, and hopefully they get a lot out of it too. So I think overall, positive.
Cool. Positive experience. I was reminded of you and this project with Hidden Door. Open Door's the consulting thing, or comparing salaries on jobs or something.
I think
I played D&D with my siblings last night, and it was great. My brother-in-law DM'd, and he's a fantastic storyteller. But I don't know what it is about D&D. It seems like the sort of thing that I should love, based on what I know about D&D and what I know about things that I like. And I've tried so many different things and different people that I'm playing with and different play styles and things that are more creative and things that are more combat based. Every time I play D&D, I just cannot make it interesting for myself. It's just 20 minutes in, I'm just okay, and this is going too slowly to be capturing my full attention, so I am checking out. And it's a struggle for me to remain present. But I thought of you in this project because it seems like an interesting experiment for me to try would be, what if I was just interacting with a computer that was the DM, and I could sort of just go as fast as I could think of new things to do. That seems like it would be capturing my attention much more. Is that? I think your scope for this project was more limited. It was come up with the list of things that players can do. Is that the sort of use case that you think this would eventually be useful for? Of playing regular Dungeons and Dragons, but way faster than you usually would?
That's an interesting take on it. I think what they're going for more is, so you have a group of friends who wants to play a game, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons themed. It can be just about anything you want. That's the beauty of the AI part. And you're sort of co-creating the world with this AI, and so it's providing an outlet for tweens, so 9 to 12-year-olds, creativity while doing it with a group of friends. And so I think that's what they're really going for. What you're talking about is a slightly different take, which almost all the same technology applies, but it's for adults who want to play D&D but don't like the sitting around for 3 hours talking about your characters or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I also think is a very valid use case, but it's not one they're going after at least right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe a spin-off in the future.
I do think
I'm going to make some D&D stuff. I want to make sort of more of a hybrid video game D&D thing where, I don't know, maybe the exploration part of it is virtual, but the DM has control over this virtual world, so he can spawn in enemies or adjust their health and stats and cause environmental things to happen. It's a thing I've been chewing on for a while.
Yeah, there is actually a VR game which you might be interested in then, and I can't remember the name of it, so I will look it up later. But it feels a lot like D&D. You have characters, then there's like bosses, and you're put in a level, and it's collaborative, so you can do it with your friends, and you're all together. It's a sit-down game, and you basically move your characters. You have like cards for power-ups and attacks and stuff, and your goal is basically to make it through a dungeon, to the door. And so we played that one. That took 4 characters. It was almost an hour to go through the whole thing, but it didn't feel that long. It felt pretty good. So yeah, I would look at that game, and I can't remember the name of it, but we'll put it in the show notes.
That sounds great.
Yeah, look at
something in VR especially would be so much more immersive, and I feel like would capture a lot more of my attention. Yeah, cool. I'm excited to try that out. What else is going on? What else were you up to this last week? Any more AI competitions? Are you tackling another industry like GPS again? Learning how submarines work or something?
Yeah, no. Well, so I started 2 of them. I started one. So one was a brain scan competition on Kaggle, and they had brain scan images, and it was not predicting if someone had a tumor or not, but given that they had a tumor, it was predicting the presence of methylated MGMT. I think I'm saying that right. And it like basically is a predictor of survival, and it also tells the doctor like what drugs to give. And the way that they figure it out now is they take like that piece of your brain, and it takes like 8 days or something to get the results. But if they could do it from a scan, then they could start giving you the drugs immediately, and they wouldn't have to take a piece of your brain. And so, but I don't know if it's possible. Or at least very well. So I went into that. I did a bunch of stuff. Nothing really worked. And then on the discussion forums, a lot of people were having a lot of trouble. So I decided to skip that competition and go to a different one, which is it's run by the NFL, and they want to determine basically how many times someone's helmet hits someone else to basically like track brain damage or like brain hits. And so they're basically based on videos of plays, can you figure out which helmet belongs to which person? And so so that is the current one that I'm in.
Amazing.
So that's what I'm doing.
I'm reminded of one of our listeners, Qubit, I think, does something in the realm of analyzing video footage from games and figuring out statistics based on that. So maybe this is a project that he put up there so that
could be
he can get that information. I'm struck by the breadth of different projects in different areas that you're sort of using the same skill set to solve. Like, you're going from making a slightly more immersive children's game where tweens can have a little more fun to, solving problems of making GPS more accurate, to figuring out for brain scan victims in the medical industry the amount of methylated MGMT that they have in their brains to be able to diagnose them, to keeping track of head injuries. Like, my gosh, if you told me, I don't know, 50 years ago that the same person with the same skill set was jumping between these industries, and you asked me what I thought they might be doing, I'd be like, I don't know, are they a janitor? Are they just like cleaning the bathrooms of all these places? Like, I can't possibly think of what the commonality is between these different sets of problems. It feels like it would have felt like it was very human specialized expertise of like, you got to really know a lot about this area, and there's unless you're, or maybe an accountant. I guess an accountant would also sort of be touching all those areas. But it's kind of wild that you're able to jump between such different projects at the level of being useful. Like, for figuring out methylated MGMT, like, you are at the level of a healthcare provider or a pathologist or like a radiologist or someone who's providing the value that they need right there. It's not like you're an accountant who's just, I'm cleaning up some I'm freeing up more time so that the specialist can do more work. You're like doing the work, and you're doing the work at the level of the expert in many different fields. It's amazing. Like, this is, I say this almost every week, but I feel very affirmed that like AI is a very useful place to be investing energy into. And not to mention, like, I can imagine you jumping onto comma AI and making cars drive themselves. That's the same sort of skill set that need to be able to do this. And this is a fantastic transition into Tesla's AI Day. I would love to talk about their Tesla bot that they did. Like, but that's another project that you could just, I feel like, jump onto. And now all of a sudden you're solving home work that needs to be done and making it so that humans don't need to do laundry or cook or clean again. Like, how cool. You're specializing in making artificial intelligence. It's neat. It's really cool that you're able to do that.
Yeah, it's I think so too. That's why I'm doing it, right? I mean, to be fair, like, programmers could, easily fit into this category too. Programmers can go in any category and solve any category problem, kind of based on the same knowledge. But yeah, it used to be, say 20 years ago, that people would specialize in, like, either text or vision or whatever. Now it's all kind of the same algorithm, or the same set of algorithms, and all you need is data and apply this algorithm, these algorithms that and then you get your answers out. Also, to be fair, like, I tried the brain scan one and I could not get it much better than guessing, and so I am not cut out for that one, apparently. Or maybe, if I spent 3 months on it, maybe I would be. I don't know, but I got further with the NFL one faster, and so that's why I'm picking that one. But yeah, I think it's very, very neat that I can use the same techniques in lots of different fields. I think that fits with my brain very well, and so that's one of the reasons I'm doing it. Yeah.
For the brain scan problem, do you feel like, I think you introduced that by saying you think it's impossible or something. Do you think there will be people who are able to solve that, or do you think the problem is framed in such a way that it's like you're not given enough data?
Well, so currently no human can do it, and so they're trying to. That's why they have to take the like a piece of your brain and do a scan on it. And so the leaderboard suggests that people will be able to do better than random, but I don't know that at least this competition will lead to anything better enough that they'll be able to, like, make medical decisions, actually based on the AI part. It's a super tricky problem and may not even be possible just based on a brain scan alone. So
that makes sense. Let's talk about the Tesla bot.
Sure.
Because this is a thing that we were talking about, like, I don't know how many episodes it was ago, but this is definitely a thing that other people have been thinking about, but I felt sort of cool of like, I have documented that I was thinking about this not too long ago. Elon Musk stole my idea. But it sort of seems like the natural place that you would be putting this. But the idea that you can just have a robot domestic servant that executes really reliably anything that you can teach it, and the same way that Tesla self-driving cars, like, any improvement made to that is improving the entire fleet. I can imagine Tesla being in a position where they're like, hey, we just pushed an upgrade to your little Tesla bots. They can wash the dishes now. They know how to load a dishwasher. And we pushed this update. They didn't know that you're supposed to put silicon things in the top rack, so now they all do that. It's going to be sort of bad at first and overpriced, and then it's only going to get better. I'm going to jump on this, I think, as soon as it's available. I feel like I could justify spending a stupid amount of money on it because it's like not going to lose its value, and this would also be solving a bunch of other problems in my life. What's your hot take on this Tesla bot? What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so I am of two minds of it for sure. Maybe 3 or 4. One is I'm very excited that someone's trying to tackle this problem who has a lot of money behind them. People have tried to tackle this problem before, doing it as startups or as small projects within companies, and have always basically run out of money. So, I mean, this was like one of 3 basically topics that he talked about during this thing. So it's obviously a very big, to be fair, the Tesla AI Day is like basically a big recruitment day, and that's what it's there for. So you have to present something that's like super exciting to a lot of AI people in order to get them to join Tesla. So that's what this was really for. But I think it's very exciting that someone's going to spend a lot of money trying to solve the problem. The other half of my brain sides with some of the people who've posted articles that are basically like, this is a stupid hard problem, and people have been working on it for decades.
Yeah.
And like each of the parts of it, you can kind of do. So you can make a hand, you can make a robot that walks on 2 legs, you can make all this stuff, but doing it all in one robot for anything resembling a reasonable price is like super ridiculous hard.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe impossible, right? And I mean, not in the limit, maybe, but yeah. So I'm very interested to see what he comes up with. I am not holding my breath at all, but I think don't bet against. I won't say don't bet against Elon Musk, but don't bet against his ability to enable other people. He provides vision and money in a way that is unique, and so if he enables the right people, then I think it's possible. But yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what happens.
I've been a little bit obsessed with him recently. I just finished reading his biography, and doing stupid, hard, impossible things that people think are ridiculous and that you can't do seems to be his modus operandi. Like,
Yeah.
for the number of records that SpaceX holds now, of first private company to dock with the ISS and first private company to first reusable rocket, and my gosh, and all these things just seemed impossible right before he did them. And his core skill seems to be being able to push people and rally them all towards a cause that does seem impossible, and just like squeeze a whole bunch more out of people than they thought they could be squeezed. While at the same, and to be able to do that, he sort of needs to understand things at every level of abstraction. And I was so amused by this recurring story that happens in his companies, where if a manager comes to him and tells him something's impossible and that they can't do it, he'll say, okay, you're off the project and I'm the new project manager, and then he'll make it happen, like exactly what he's asking for.
Yep.
Just to sort of prove, like, when I ask you to do things, like, figure out a way to do them. So yeah, I'm also very excited that someone with money and talent to do impossible things is focused on this problem. It's very exciting, and sort of like incredibly sci-fi. Of this fits into his entire vision of, okay, this is who you're going to send to Mars first. You're going to send a bunch of these robots, and they're going to do the basic terraforming of building whatever the dome structure is that the humans need to be in. And then that's sort of like your workforce that needs to go out and do the dangerous things on Mars while the humans are nice and safe in their little biome. So cool, some of the stuff this guy's doing. And I found myself, perhaps in an unhealthy way, but in another sense, in a energizing, motivating way, comparing myself to him, of like, part of the biography was spelling out his whole life story of how he started this company called Zip2 that was this mapping company, and then sold it when he was around my age for something like $20 million, and then took all that money and rolled it into X.com, which turned into PayPal, and then his exit from that was several $100 million, and then he took all of that and dumped it all into SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City. And hit like almost rock bottom, where all three things were on the brink of bankruptcy, but they all ended up paying off. And oh man, it's so the unhealthy part of it is like, my gosh, look at how much stuff this guy has done, and what a worthless piece of shit I am for like, what have I gotten done? I've got a handful of projects that help people move files around and that edit some videos. Like how. And then on the more positive side, it's sort of like most of the things, well, all of the things that I'm impressed with Elon Musk for happened later in his life. They happened like from, I think he's 50-ish now, and I think most of these things of having Tesla and SpaceX, like that all happened very late in his career. And so that makes me think like, wow, I can get a lot done in my life. A life is a long period of time, and if I have my sights set single-mindedly on a goal as audacious as I would like for humans to be an interplanetary species, I could get a lot done, and I could rally a lot of people behind me to help with this mission. So I've been doing some thinking about what my thing like that is. I'm not so jazzed about Mars. That's not quite a I don't know. It's not super interesting to me. But there are more interesting problems of like longevity and longevity. Longevity I think would be my thing, trying to get people to live much longer than they currently do. What's your take on that? How do you feel when you think about the things that Elon Musk has gotten done in his life?
Yeah, so I read that biography too. It's the same as like when you hear people like, so like Sam Altman, who ran Y Combinator for a while and is now in charge of OpenAI and has like a singular focus, or like other people like that. Steve Jobs is an example people bring up all the time. So, if you want to take them as people who you want to like lift up in your mind as people who get stuff done, he poured not just all of his money, but all of his money, leveraged money, into each company, and so he wouldn't have lost $100 million. He almost lost all of his money, like minus $10 million or something.
Yeah.
He was almost in debt, like $10 million.
Yeah.
He works 100 something hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely focused, as far as I understand. He's been divorced 3 times, I think. Married twice to the same person. He has 6 kids, but never sees them, right?
Yep.
Or tries to see them a little bit. Like, you have to be like that if you want to do the things that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've said several times that we are not like that.
No.
So I still think there's a lot of information that we can kind of glean from his life about, like, having a focus is good. I think having a driving purpose is good. Having setting goals and doing hard things is good. But I'm not the kind of person who wants to put myself in debt times 10. I'm not the kind of person who wants to have 3 divorces. I am not, so I'm just not that person. And so after I figured that out, it made me feel better about not comparing myself to people who have done great things, because they do great things at great sacrifice, which is not me. So, yeah.
Jordan Peterson's second book has an adage that I feel like echoes what you're saying, that I've found more comfort in, which is compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not who someone else is today. And part of that adage is the idea that you expressed of, like, he is optimizing for different things. He's sacrificing everything to make humans an interplanetary species, at the cost of his health, at the cost of his relationships, at the cost of safety in financial security. And that's not the life that I think either of us want to live. There are other, life is a very holistic problem. It's very multifaceted. And at the same time, I think I'm finding inspiration in that, seeing an example of what someone can do and how much they can get done when they do have that singular-minded focus, when they do have that drive of, like, this thing is more important than all other things. Wow, you can get so much done. And, like, to be able to have such clarity and single-minded focus that you feel like you're justified in spending 100 hours a week working towards that goal. That's something I'm envious of. That's something that I feel like I'd like to have, and I don't quite know what that is. I feel like most of my driving force in my career and the stuff that I work on is much more like short-term focused of, okay, I have this problem immediately in front of me, and I want to solve this problem, and my grander goal seems to be sort of like generally solve problems and try to do it for as long as possible. And it's just got me thinking. It's got me in this mindset of, like, what might my life look like if I moved a little bit more in the direction of Elon Musk? I would really like to cure cancer, and that's my thing. And I don't have to sacrifice everything of who I am. I don't have to, like, become Elon Musk and start getting divorced way faster, or just start working 100-hour weeks. But moving a little bit more in that direction and having a little bit more of that firm, like, okay, this thing is incredibly important to me, and I'd like to be, even if I'm having an off day, even if I'm feeling tired, I have such a clear goal of what I need to get done in the future that I feel like I'm running out of time to be able to solve it. So I'm going to put a lot more towards that goal. That's the mood that reading his biography put me in.
Yeah, I would say that's the same mood it put me in as well. But, like, I mean, so Paul Graham has a good quote from one of his startup talks, which is like, a lot. So he was talking to an audience of people who wanted to start startups, and he said, you all want to start startups, but that is just part of your end goal, which is having a good life. And that is most people's goal. And so yes, it is great to have a driving vision, something that you're really passionate about, but if for most people being not Steve Jobs, not Elon Musk, not Bezos or Zuckerberg, right? If you're not balanced, then you're gonna, not only are you not going to accomplish what you set out to do, you're going to have a bad life doing it. And so I think for normal people, which is, everyone but maybe 10 people in the world at any given time or something like that, or maybe 100 people in the world, I think having a balanced life is super important. So, yeah.
Agreed. It's a much safer bet, and I feel like objectively give you a better life. Like, in reading his book, I was struck by that I would not want to trade places with him. I would not want to be living his life. It would be awful. Like, it would be cool for about a week to be like, ooh, I got a private jet and I can go anywhere I want. But in a sense, he's sort of a slave to the private jet. Like, it's a very utilitarian. He's got companies in several states across the country, and he needs to be moving between them, and he needs to be moving between them as fast as possible and as time efficiently as possible. So, yes, he has to have a private jet. And looking at just like functionally what he's doing, he's taking 300 flights a year. I don't want to be doing that. I hate flying, even if it was on a private jet. And even just, exposing yourself to that amount of radiation, getting above the ionosphere, that can't be good for you. And yeah, he gets to boss a whole company of people around, but at the same time, like, he's responsible for that number of people and responsible to his investors, and sort of has the entire world criticizing him, and he has to execute it. Like, I would not want to make the trade, and it felt sort of reassuring that I feel like I'm living in my best life, and there are some things that I want to feel inspired to
a quote
move
which
a little bit.
A quote which I think might be from the book that you're talking about is Elon Musk says that, like, being him, like running his companies, is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. That's the famous quote, and that sounds like hyperbole, but I think for him it's not. Like, if you are willing to break a glass bottle and chew on it in order to advance your life goal, then you can be Elon Musk.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you can't.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. And at the same time, I'm sort of envious of, like, my gosh, what must be driving this guy that he feels like he does want to do that? I'm sort of very grateful to him of, like, he's busting his ass so that I can drive a cool car, and so that maybe me or my children will be able to live on Mars if they want to, and the world has cleaner energy, and, like, yeah, cool, thank you. I would not want to have done that work myself, but it's super cool that you're doing it for me. Yeah, that was cool. I have a segue of a thing that I'd love your hot take on. Great. A problem that I've been generally interested in is keeping track of time in different ways. We have these standard ways of keeping track of time of, like, okay, if it's on the scale of a day, it's a clock, and we can express time in hours and minutes, and we can say sort of like, okay, we can have a timeline of things that occurred during the day and say this happened at 9 a.m. and then, an hour and a half later at 10:30, this other thing happened, and we can grasp things that happen on that scale. And then we have analogies for time of things that happen on the scale of, like, a week, because that's days. I can say this happened 3 days ago, and this was on a Monday, and this was on a Tuesday, or whatever. And then we have a set of time on the scale of a month. We can say, like, the 1st or the 30th of the month, and you have a grasp of what that means. And we have time on the scale of a year. You can say, like, oh, this was January 1st, and then 4 months later, this other thing happened, and you sort of understand what that means and about how much time that is. And then it falls apart on the scale of decades and lifetimes. There's like, you can say a thing happened a number of years ago, but that for me is when the analogies of things sort of start to fall apart. We have this idea of decades, that, like, there were the 90s and the aughts and the 10s or whatever, the 20s, but it's a little bit looser, and that's where people post these memes of, like, can you believe that this thing happened this many years ago, and, like, the distance between now and when the first Toy Story movie was made is the same amount of time of when the pyramids were made. And is that true? I don't know, I guess. And so I've been very interested in how to represent time in more greppable ways on the scale of timelines of, like, a person's life of 80-ish years. And where that's led me, I may have mentioned this on the show before, but I made my girlfriend this gift of a timeline of her life for her 30th birthday, and showed, like, all these major life events that happened in her life, and I represented it as this sort of snake that started at the top left and snaked around, and every line was a year. And so you could see, and then it's 30 lines like that snake back and forth. And so you can see, like, oh, this is when, you competed in this major gymnastics competition, and then a couple lines later is when you went to college, so this is about this much time, and you can sort of get more of a feel for it. So I turned that into a web app, and now I have this thing that can represent a person's life on this scale. And it was very interesting reading this biography by Elon Musk, because as they were going through the major beats of his life, to be able to better contextualize them for myself, I put them on this timeline, and I was able to see, oh, look, he started this company here, and then this amount of time after that, he started this other company, and wow, he was working on this company for a long time, and wow, his first marriage was, like, a lot longer than the 2 marriages he had after that. And that's not something that I understood at a holistic level when I was just reading the book. So it was very useful for that. But now I have this web app, lifetimeline.app, and I don't know what to do with it. I think it might be interesting to integrate it into another thing I've been chewing on of like a family tree app. It'd be cool to have this for all of my relatives. I'd love to see for my lineage. Oh my gosh, comparing my life to my grandfather's life. Like, he got married way earlier than I did, and wow, I am now as old as he was when we first met. That would be really cool, and I think it would make sense in that context. But I don't know. I'm curious of your hot take of like, what do I do with this now? I've invented a calendar on the scale of a person's life. What are your thoughts? Is this a useless thing just for me that I can use to better understand biographies and also put in my family tree app, or is there an angle here I'm not seeing?
Yeah, so I think you showed me this like middle of last week or something, and I've had some time to think about it. I had some hot takes then. I think it's very interesting. I don't know the web app angle of it right off the bat, but I do have several ideas. Which one is absolutely seeing things on a timeline is easier to understand, and so yeah, it's like very interesting to see, like, say, a person's life on a timeline. I immediately thought of Simone Yates. She did a 365 day. She's the queen of shitty robots. She was on Adam Savage's Tested for a while.
Yeah, that's right.
Now she's her own thing. She did a Kickstarter for this thing where you like click a button for every single day, and it's meant to build habits. And I thought of that, but like on your whole lifetime, like so that was an example of a calendar for a whole year, and you have a calendar for a whole lifetime. So there's kind of like a parallel there. The other thing is, the thing I immediately thought of is this would be really neat. Like, so I think the example I gave was like Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter, right? He had a long life and he had lots of things happen, and you could like do a whole calendar of his life and then print it on a poster, and I bet a lot of people would buy that poster. And so that was one of my examples. The other one was like Luke and Leia Skywalker. They started together and then they sort of split apart, so you could have like two calendars that sort of, weaved in and out. And that would be very interesting. So like fictional characters or characters people love. The other thing you just talked about was history. So it'd be very interesting to like, say, map World War I on this, right? So you have like 4 years or so. And what if you had all the big battles and all the, I don't know, number of people who died or something for, on a 4-year or 5-year chart. So those are some of my ideas. I don't, none of them are like web app related. I think it's very interesting that you can like show more than just say a year on a timeline. But yeah, I don't have any great ideas about what to do with it in the immediate future, except for those. So
I loved all of those. Those are all things that I had not thought of. The Simone Yates habit tracking, my mind went to what if you could see your habit tracking on the scale of your life? So right. Like you have the buttons that you're clicking, but then that for a single day, that is actually changing a pixel on the timeline of your life that colors it red or green or something. So, and then that gives you a much broader scale of like, okay, you're having a bad day, but look at how small a bad day is on the scale of your entire life, and you've had a string of good days, and look at how just small incremental improvements add up over the entire scale. Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, I'm gonna think about that. I love the calendar of like fictional characters as posters. That's a really good idea. And I think looking at that, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do that with Elon Musk because I already have it made. I'm just gonna like design it as a poster. Oh, that's a really good idea. And then yeah, I could sort of repeat that with like any fictional character and any person of importance. I could do that with presidents or. I really like that. And then I hire a designer to like do the frame of it and have a picture of them or something, and I have it consistent with, I don't know, maybe like a line drawing of the person's face and make it so it's thematically similar. Because yeah, I get so much more out of seeing the things in their life that I'm familiar with in the context of their entire life. Like, everyone knows the story of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. It may be apocryphal, but how cool would it be if you could see, he was 6 years old when that happened. Nothing notable happened in his life for the next 30 years. And this is sort of how he became successful and the small things that led up to that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like the posters.
Yeah, you mentioned biographies too. Like, what if you got in contact with some people who wrote biographies and say, do you want this picture in the front of your biography that covers all the things in their life or something? Or I'm imagining like a coffee table book of, like every character in Game of Thrones. This is their, timeline throughout the whole series or something like that. Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, more traditional publishing. That's not an angle I'd thought of. I think the first thing I would do is like throw this up on Etsy and try to think of I wouldn't want to be printing or shipping the posters, so I'd want to look for a third party that could do that. Do you know of anything offhand that does that? Is it like
I don't, but I know there are at least there's a dozen drop shippers that'll do that for you. Yeah. There's probably hundreds of drop shippers that'll do that for you.
Maybe Custom Ink or something would. I don't think they do shipping. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'm sure there's something. And then doing things like historical. I hadn't thought of this in the scale of wars or battles. You could do like the history of America or like World War One, because there's something about this that gives me more of a holistic sense of, and the innovation that I've made is tiny. I take a timeline and I just wrap it around so it's a snake. Right. I have no delusions of grandeur that I've like invented something incredible, but that small change seems to be enough to make it more greppable, that like I can fit a lot more stuff into a smaller space. And it seems blatantly obvious now, but this is something I've been chewing on for years. And there's prior art of this. I don't think I invented it. But I have tooling now to be able to make this much faster. And it took me forever to try to come up with like, what does this thing look like? I was doing grids and I was doing like columns and stuff from weight but wide, trying to figure out what this might look like. But yeah, okay, I think I've stumbled on a good format, and I like these ideas of selling more like traditional publishing things. If I could buy a poster of Elon Musk's life that was just the timeline I've already made that was decorated a little bit, that would be really cool. I could see that doing well on Etsy. Neat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think there's a meta point, which is like, it took you a long time to figure it out. And once you figured it out, like, it looks obvious in retrospect. But something that takes a long time to figure out and looks obvious in retrospect has value. And it's just like figuring out what that value is. But yeah, so it's obvious to you now, but it took you a long time to figure out. Yeah. Has value. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the affirmation.
Yeah.
One more point I wanted to circle back to on the AI conversation is OpenAI announced a new thing I think it was in the last week, called Codex, where you type in a comment for a code and you get the code out. And it's in the announcement, it seemed like they were saying that this was a surprising application of GPT-3, of people using it for code completion, and so they intentionally developed out that part of it to be more robust. And the demo looks amazing. You just write out the comment for what you want and it writes the code. And I've seen demos like this before. This was GitHub's Copilot, I think it's called. But man, it some of the stuff I was seeing was amazing. You could reference things in the past and it remembered like what things were called, and you could do things like say, now make this thing movable back and forth with my arrow keys, and it just did it. It knew how to do that, and that's that would take a beginner programmer days to do, and that would take me a couple hours to re-remember, like, what, not hours. It would take me an hour to re-remember the key bindings and figure out a way to do that, and the framework behind it. What are your thoughts on this? It seems like inevitably the place that we're going towards is that programming is made more automated, and that we don't need programmers. We just need people who can define systems and know a little bit about the system. I'm reminded of like the shift from going from binary to C, or binary to assembly and then assembly to C. It's moving up the ladder of abstraction. It seems like this is inevitably where coding is going to be, that instead of writing the actual code, you're just sort of describing to the computer what you want. You're just sort of writing the test case and it figures out how to do it. What were your thoughts on that? Is this just a fancy demo, or are we actually coming to a point where this is how coding is going to be done?
Yeah, I have loads of thoughts. The VS Code thing that you talked about, Copilot, that's actually backed by the same OpenAI code. So OpenAI runs that like backend. So it's basically essentially the same demo. So at the same time, it's extremely interesting and very exciting. It's exactly what I feel when I generate these like images with the VQGAN plus clip, like the AI generated images that I've been doing on Twitter. It's like they're very intriguing and also a little bit wrong in a lot of different ways. And it's the same thing with the code. It's very interesting, very intriguing. If you know exactly what to say, then you can get exactly the right output. And if you don't quite know exactly what to say, then you get exactly the wrong output and you have no idea how to fix it. And it's sort of the same thing with these images. And so we're at the point now with both code and text and images where you can generate lots of different things. And it sort of makes sense some of the time. And you can make a demo, which makes it look like it makes a lot of sense. But right now, we are not anywhere close to what a lot of people think, is going on. So that's all very interesting. At the same time, I see the future, right? I see like exactly where this can go and exactly how it can get there. And so I'm very excited for that. It reminds me a little of the no-code space where, you have all these no-code tools and they can do lots of things. But the instant that they can't do, like, you hit the limit where you can't do exactly what you want, then you have to fall back to coding. There always has to be a way to specify like a more granular thing. So yeah, that's where I think it is now. I think it's extremely interesting. I think it is nowhere close to what most people think of when they see, what it can do. But it's still very interesting. And so that's what I think right now. I don't think we're anywhere close to replacing programmers, is what I'm trying to say.
Reasonable. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a graph I've seen of the progress of any sort of innovation where it's like no one cares, and then there's an announcement, and then it gets hype, and people think it's going to be amazing, and then there's the trough of disillusionment or something where they realize, this isn't meeting the expectations, and then it slowly rises up to actually be at the place where you thought it was originally. So yeah, it seems like with each of these demos, there's a bunch of hype, and it's still functionally what's happening is it's just progressing roughly linearly with some jumps every once in a while in what's possible. But yeah, right now it seems like a cool demo, and it seems like there are applications where it might be faster, sort of in this weird in-between space where it's half useful, and so it's sort of a toss-up of if this is going to be a net time saver or time waster, which is very exciting. Like that I think is what progress looks like. Yeah, I'm optimistic and excited too. And man, I'm terrified of what this is going to look like in 5 years. You just talk to Siri and tell it to make you a Flappy Birds app, and it'll do it.
Yeah, I do think so. What we talked about, actually, this is another thing we talked about a while ago that is now there's demos for, which is like if I want to, like make a button that shows up a tooltip, right? That might take me, I don't know, a few hours to find the right tooltip and style it, and then click the button and you do the thing. But I've done that already probably 100 times, and so why do I have to do it again, right?
Yeah.
If I could just tell the thing to make a tooltip to show up in the thing, and so it's like a fancy autocomplete, and that like a fancy code autocomplete. That's where I think it's super helpful in the short term, because like code editors right now, they'll do autocompletes, but it's like a small function or whatever. But if you could like change lots of bits of your code as an autocomplete, that's where I think it's super powerful. So I think that's where we're going, with Copilot in the next short while. And that's where I think it's very interesting, but that's still programmers using autocomplete to do their job. It's not, replacing programmers. So I'm excited for that. Like, I think that is good. Like, give me fancy autocomplete. I like that. Yeah.
I like framing it as a fancy autocomplete. That makes me think of that the thing I feel like I really want is a better context-aware AI editor, where instead of me typing out the code, if I have done the thought of, I don't know, I need to refactor this code to, I want to abstract this function into its own file, it would be great if I could just say the words, abstract this function into its own file, and have the 5 things that need to happen of like, okay, take this function and include all of the things that it's importing and make that a new file with the same name as the function name, and then import that into the regular file. But then saying that out loud, there's nothing AI about that. There's like, I could just make a macro that does that. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe the magic part of that is that I could just be making these macros on the fly, that if I felt like I was pair programming with someone who knew a little bit of code, who understood the context of the words that I'm saying and the structure of my code, and knew how to test that the code was valid, that it didn't just break something by not importing a statement or something, that would be a huge boost in efficiency. But that this isn't going to be writing the core of my code for a while.
Yeah, there's actually sort of a giant paper that just came out of Stanford, which I haven't read yet. It's like 100 pages, which is like a book, but it's an academic paper. And it talks about basically how giant models have changed what AI means. So what that means in this context is, sure, you can write a macro that says, abstract this function to its own file. But what you can't do is like write something that is like a million macros, right? So any macro you can think of.
Hmm.
And that's what these giant models are. It's like anything that you can think of, this giant model can do because it's seen so much code.
Hmm.
And so that's what the Stanford paper is talking about. Basically, like GPT and other giant models is like it's like making a million of those specific macro functions, but a human didn't have to do it. It learned it all through code, or through seeing lots of examples. And so that, I think, is the big innovation here. Is you could write a macro to do that, but you didn't have to. You could just ask this new OpenAI Codex or whatever it's called. Yeah,
That's
so
very
I'm excited.
cool.
Yeah,
That would be the point that I think I would start using these systems. And I haven't been tempted away from my Sublime Text editor to try GitHub's. Oh my gosh,
Copilot.
Copilot, thank you. Because code generation doesn't seem like it's the hard part for me. The thing that I feel like would be adding productivity to how quickly I can write code would be in editing and changing things, as opposed to coming up with new stuff. Like I can copy and paste from Stack Overflow all day, but the hard part of this is in the integration and in cleaning stuff up, and it's so much harder to remove code than it is to add new code. So yeah, if I had this sort of machine that this Stanford paper is describing, where it's able to make me more effective at making those higher level changes, that feels like where the real productivity boost would be.
Yeah. I also love how, like, as a meta point, we're having this conversation, and in 20 years, we can go back and listen to this recording, and it's going to seem hilariously outdated. Like, whatever the future is in 20 years, it's going to make whatever we're saying now seem obvious and silly.
Yes.
So I kind of love that as a meta point. Yeah.
We kind of already have that with the we predicted the Tesla bot like months before
Right.
it came out, and yeah, that's going to be a fun episode to listen back to, like when we have Tesla bots there in our house doing our dishes. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I have two smaller updates. The first is I set a goal for myself of working on fileinbox for at least 129 minutes. Looking back over my records, let's see, 0 minutes on fileinbox,
right.
which I have mixed feelings about. I'm just gonna do it. I funny, like I've read this Elon Musk biography and sort of felt this renewed motivation to be working on fileinbox of like, this is how I get my first 20 million. Then I can roll into whatever my analog of PayPal is going to be. So I at the same time felt more motivation, but also didn't actually get the work done. I just made a timeline of Elon Musk's life instead. Yeah. So I'm not happy with that, I think. And I know what it looks like. It looks like, every day setting goals for myself of I'm going to today work for 4 palms on this thing, pushing it forward. And even if I don't know what it is, even if I don't know what the work is going to be, the work could just be sitting down for 20 minutes and writing down possible places to do the work. So this week feels really good for working on fileinbox. That's what I'm going to work on as soon as we get off this call. I have 3 actually. The second was the call I was supposed to have onboarding my first paid customer on the Cliffstone Marketing. Got rescheduled to today. So the new exciting thing is going to happen today. It might get my first paying customer on fileinbox. And then I have another one also lined up. So Cliffstone Marketing, yes. I have way more than one on fileinbox. Yeah. And then surprised myself by reincarnating this project that I've been chewing on that we've talked about a few times of having my own email app. I tried Superhuman and I've tried a bunch of different email clients. I really like Spark in that it's batching stuff together, but the fundamental thing that I really want to happen that no email client I've tried has been able to do is cluster emails by sender. And I want to perform actions on that sender because I'll have, sometimes I'll go a month without checking my email and I'll have 200 emails that are shipping notifications from AliExpress. And I want to be able to deal with all of those at the same time because they all require the same action. And, if I somehow got on an email list that I don't want to be on that's sending me daily emails, I don't want that to take any more of my attention than this cluster of emails needs to be unsubscribed from and all of these emails need to be reported as spam and I'm done. That feels like the most effective way to get through my inbox, especially if I've had a lot of email built up. And I think the reason this doesn't exist is that not many people go through email the same way I do, where like I want to get to 0 every time I check my inbox. And sometimes I let my inbox sit and collect stuff for a really long time. And as part of this journey of trying to figure this out, I feel like I've figured out the basic architecture of what this is, and I'm having to re-figure out how OAuth works again. It's every time. I don't know why it's so hard.
What if Copilot? You could
yes,
just say
that's what I need. I need Copilot.
OAuth.
But even then, like, yeah, it could generate the code for me to be, it would probably generate code that would make sense if it was running on a node server, but I have this integrated in this infrastructure where I want it to be running on Firebase, and it has to be able to refresh it in the back end. And like, the hard part is not copying and pasting the code. The hard part is like the integration of it's got to work in this particular way. And I have to save this piece of I have to save the refresh token, and I have to save it in this way. And that has to be saved in this secure way where no one can access it but the system. But I still need users to be able to authenticate themselves, so it needs to be able to write. It's like, OAuth is not the problem. The problem is this is sort of a dance between two different things, and it seems like every time I'm doing this, that the thing doing the dance is different and needs to save the information in a different way. But just wanted to give you an update. I did get some work done this week. I didn't just compare myself to Elon Musk and make a timeline. I meaningfully push forward this project that will make it so that future versions of myself will be able to get through email much faster. And I think that's a thing that'll get done this week. The hard part of it, of figuring out this OAuth dance, I think I figured out. That might be a thing that gets done today, that I'm able to successfully do that dance. And then everything else about this app, of like downloading the email and saving it by thread and then sorting it by sender, clustering it by sender, it seems just trivially easy. It's the OAuth part of it that's been giving me the hardest trouble in figuring out the architecture of like how the data is going to be stored. And I feel like I've finally figured those problems out, so that feels good. I think I just want you to say good job.
I was gonna say this. That was great, and I look forward to hearing when your OAuth troubles are over. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. What's your relationship with email? How do you? I think we're both in a weird situation where we don't have. Well, I guess you would be different this last month, having a real job, and going to change also starting school. But what's your usual relationship with email?
Yeah, so actually with the job, so they don't use much email. They use, emails for like calendar invites and stuff, but most of the work gets done through like a daily stand-up and then through Slack, which I kind of like better than email. So that's been good. Generally with email, I keep things unread until they are done. And so like I have 3 unread items in my inbox right now. One of them is a few months old. Another one is about a week old, and another one is new. And so, like that tells me like how much stuff I have to do. So, but yeah, I keep it down to hopefully 0, but right now it's 3 unread emails, and the rest I ignore. So
cool.
Yeah.
You are more on top of your life than I am right now.
I probably get less email, I think it sounds like, also. So I'm very voracious about unsubscribing from things. Like I don't subscribe to very many things at all.
I've gotten lazy with that. I think that's going to be my biggest takeaway from the system, is mass unsubscribing, realizing, oh my gosh, 200 emails came from this old Navy newsletter that I've just been deleting each one. And, if I go through 10 seconds of work, I can make it so that I never have to deal with this again. Neat. A benefit of working the way that we do, structuring our lives the way that we do. Don't have to deal with as much email. I heard once from a friend that works at Microsoft, I think, that the average Microsoft employee gets something like 1,000 emails a day, and I don't know how I could live. That would be.
I think I get 5.
My life would just be email.
I think my number is about 5. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know, but yeah.
I might get 2 emails that I need to do something with per day, but none of it's urgent. All of the urgent things in my life I've sort of systematized. Like, okay, this is when taxes are due, and this is when I need to do my quarterly reports,
right.
And there's almost no emergencies.
I did hear, this is another Paul Graham one, but he said in one of his things that if he thought about his life, email is probably the biggest problem in his life. And he didn't give a number, but he said he could probably spend $1,000 a month easily if he could improve email. And I think Superhuman took that to heart, and that's why they built what they did. But important people are very bogged down by email, and so if you can solve that problem, then important people will pay you a lot of money. Yeah, that's why they have assistants, right?
Yeah. I thought about that, and I tried out Superhuman, and they're doing a lot of things well. I like their emphasis on keyboard shortcuts, but it's not made for me. I think it's made for I don't know, the type of person who is getting 1,000 emails a day.
Yeah.
So I'm once again doing a B2Me and making an email app for me. And I don't know if there are other people like this, but even if I'm the only person who uses this, I think it'll be a net positive use of my time.
I think email apps are a little bit like to-do apps. Everyone has an idea of how it should work. So if you can find a way to reach the other people who think like you, like I think there's probably, who knows, 1 million people like you who think that way in the world. Getting, finding them is the hard part. But I'm sure there are other people just like you. So
a way that would not work to find them is to send them cold emails. That
probably
would be a terrible way to get customers for this thing. That's interesting. And I'll be chewing on possible ways to find more people with the same sort of email relationship.
Ads are probably not the same way either. It's probably I don't know what the way is. How do people reach you? I don't know.
They don't.
There you go. I don't know.
I guess I go on Twitter, so maybe a Twitter ad would work.
I have bought things. I have bought things that people on Twitter have recommended. That's something that I've done. So that's probably similar. Yeah,
Facebook ads have gotten really good for me. They've started recommending things that I'm just instantly like, yes, of course, this is exactly the sort of thing that I would buy.
This is a whole other conversation, but I almost can't use Twitter on my phone anymore because the ads have gotten very good, and there's an ad every 3 posts or something. So I just don't go on there anymore because everything is oh, I should look into that. Why am I on here? I don't, it's the AI is working against me. So I go on Twitter on my computer where there's an ad blocker that can effectively get rid of those. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. And on the one hand, my life has been meaningfully improved by some of the things that I bought from Facebook ads. A daily at-home urinalysis test is one of the things that I most recently bought from a Facebook ad that told me I was deficient in both magnesium and vitamin C. So I'm gonna take supplements for that. And on the other hand, I don't know. I don't like it. It's someone else inserting their agenda into my life. It's like,
yeah.
But I don't it was accurate. That was a way that I wanted to improve my life. And it wasn't like my top priority, but they made it very easy. They put it right there in front of my face and had a very easy checkout of a one-click thing. I feel conflicted about it. I strongly prefer this to, getting spam emails for male enhancement pills.
Sure.
Because that's certainly not a problem that I have. And
It's like a weird turn.
Episode title for this one: Christian brags about his large penis.
Gonna have to cut this out for the YouTube.
We're gonna have to.
Algorithm.
This gonna get demonetized.
Which we aren't anyway.
If people are advertising to me with advertisements that are actually things that I need, they're doing work for me, that they're improving my life in a way that I wanted it to be improved, without me having to do any work. And I don't like that it's happening in moments that are pulling me away from something else. But that's kind of what I'm doing on Twitter, right? What's the difference between seeing a very well-targeted ad that's advertising something to me that I actually want versus seeing a friend post about it? And I feel like the reason I'm going to Twitter is to be exposed to new information like that. And I think that's where I'm settling. I like that ads are getting better and they're getting more targeted, and because that's sort of why I'm going on social media. I'm trying to expand what I'm exposed to, and I want to know about new things. And if after this episode, my phone has been secretly listening to me and found a service that will print on-demand posters for me for my timeline idea, and they're like, hey, 20% off your first poster, and we do drop shipping, that would be great. And I think that's where
So what I'm hearing is you have to make your email app and then make a hyper-targeted Twitter ad that says, have you tried Superhuman, but you didn't actually like it in these ways? Try this thing instead.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Let's end this episode before I say anything else embarrassing.
Sounds good.
Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you next week. Goodbye.